Okay, Zok the Gemara. We're on the top of Daf Tzadik Aleph. With Aleph, the last thing we learned was Me'afracha if you're two cities, one on either side of the border between Eretz Yisrael and Syria, you'd be allowed to bring Paris there. Tanu Rabbanan, Ein mistakrin be'Eretz Yisrael b'davar sheyesh b'hen chayei nefesh. You're not allowed to profiteer out of items in Eretz Yisrael that are chayei nefesh. And the Rashbam explains, what does it mean, ein mistakrin? Liknois yain v'shemen v'saltois mi balabayis limker v'shul. You're not allowed to buy all of these items to sell, to resell. Rather, they should be sold directly from the manufacturer, from the producer, to the end user, meaning as Jews, we have to cut out the middleman. The balabais himself, who produced these payers, he should sell it directly to the public. Just like you can sell to a chaven, you should sell direct. If you're a baker, then you're allowed to buy wheat and resell, because you're not reselling it in its same form. Rather, you're producing bread out of it. There's a tircha to make the bread. That's a service that you're allowed to provide. But just to buy and sell, just to be a merchant, to deal in oichel nefesh and chayei nefesh, that's not allowed. The balabais nami matzin mazvin lebeloiter, because the balabais could sell it directly to the public without doing anything to it, like you need to do if you're baking bread. So therefore, you should sell directly to the public, cut out all the levels of distribution, because we want to keep the prices down on chayei nefesh. And those are yenoi shmonim v'saltis. Amrulav al Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, shahayim mistaker b'yayin v'shemen. He would make money off wine and oil, meaning he would buy them and then sell them, which is what the Brisa says you're not allowed to do. B'yayin tzarva like Rabbi Yehuda. By wine, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that we just learned at the bottom of Amabeis, that halavai shiyoikir v'loikim mimenu. To the contrary, we want wine to be more expensive because we don't want people to indulge too much in wine because it brings tiflos. And b'shemen, and why did he allow himself to make money off oil? Because there was so much oil that there was no such concern. Tanu Rabbanan, ein mistakrin pamayim bebeitzim. You're not allowed to be mistaker pamayim, by eggs. We'll see in a moment what pamayim is. Bebeitzim nearly Dr. Rashbam, which the beitzim ein behem chayei nefesh kolkach. They're not considered basic staples. And become terech meruba, there's also a lot of work involved in producing them and storing them. V'revach muatu, and it doesn't make much money anyway. La'oni ha'mechazer b'yaris likbus beitzim. There's very, very little profit if anyone wanted to buy and sell it. And therefore, we allowed him to make money. And the Rashbam is saying more than a shtus, meaning you're allowed to make more. You're allowed to mark it up more than 17%. And we'll see what pamai means. Amar Mori Bar Mori Piliga Barav and Shmuel. What does pamai mean? That's why they put tax on cigarettes.
You love to buy some beef jerky in some places in Lakewood. It's like $89 a pound.
Really?
Seriously, yeah, US, right? People don't buy it. You charge like a fish kid, people buy it.
I hear Chad Omar al Chad tray. One Mandamer said that you're not allowed to double it. So you're allowed to charge up to 100% profit, 99% profit, but not 100% profit. Chad Omar Tagra la Tagra, meaning although you're allowed to buy and sell, but you're not allowed to make it go through too many levels of distribution. You could buy and then sell, but you can't buy it and then sell it to another person who's also going to resell it, because then you have levels upon levels of markup. Of a little tager acher. Yesh can revach shtei palmen the tager rishon u'the tager sheni u'maikirin yoyser midai. That will jack up the price more than necessary. Abu b'shar dvar mutter, but other things will be mutter. Shem yoyker zeh yim zachem shirkmu b'zol. Other things we're not worried, like things that aren't oichel nefesh. We're not worried if they go up, if people jack up the price, because we have capitalism. There's a market. If someone charges too much, he just will lose business and people will buy it from his competitor. Tanu Rabbanan, Masrin al haprakmatya fafilu b'Shabbos. And the Rishbam tells us, Masri means to be misamitz b'tfila, even on Shabbos, al prakmatya shahuzla the bakstiksin, if prices even drop. So we're not only worried about everybody, the consumers, we're worried about the merchants too. As the Rishbam says, al prakmatya shahuzla, habegadim taivim shahuzla. Let's say begadim aren't chayi nefesh, but if they dropped in value, that means we're going through a recession. Now's the time to daven. You're allowed to be misamitz b'tfila even on Shabbos. The ain kan hefsed lanim in your cure. We're not concerned that these items should go up because it doesn't hurt anim who don't buy these things anyway. Now, at what point in a price drop would it warrant tefillos even on Shabbos? I'm Rabbi Yochanan going klekishton beBavel v'yayim v'shem Eretz Yisrael. I'm Rabbi Yosef who zol become asar b'shita. They have to drop by 40%. Something that was worth $10 is now being sold for $6. When you're getting only 60 cents on the dollar, that crisis that requires special tefillah. Dr. Shpam Vudazol Kol Kach, the Kimasar Begodim Vidmei Shita. Shahuz Lukarav Lumecht. They've lost 40% of their value. Tanu Rabbanan. Ein yotzim me'eretz l'chutz la'eretz elam kein omdu sasayim b'sel. You know when inflation is high enough that you're allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael, if in order to buy 2 saw, cost a seller. Now, I don't know the typical value of these things, but what I do know is that in the Navi, there's a story where there were 4 Mitzrayim that were locked out of the city because they were Mitzrayim, and this is in the Haftarah to Tazria. And there was a hunger in the Machane Yisrael, people didn't have what to eat. And the Navi got up and said, tomorrow, Sasayim Sa'orim B'Shekel, Usa'a Soilas B'Shekel. Which means, if I could just put it into perspective, the Soilas B'Shekel is going to be a very low price. It's a very low price to have a Soilas for a shekel. A Soilas for a shekel is, I believe, a half a seller. So I guess the markets have changed and the value of food must have changed, but in the Bryce's time, Sasayim Besela was considered very, very expensive. What's the problem with leaving Eretz Yisrael? Why is it such a big deal to leave Eretz Yisrael? So there's a very, very controversial discussion over here, because the Rishbam says, you know why you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael? Shemafkia atzme min mitzvos plural. It's mashma that we're not worried about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, because it should say you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael because it's the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't say that. What it does say is there's many mitzvahs that you could be mekayim in Eretz Yisrael that you cannot be mekayim in chutz la'aretz. Rumas and maishras, there's many mitzvahs to lose parts, and that's what we're worried about. But it's mashma, we're not worried about the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Because if that's the case, what's happens about mitzvahs, you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. So there's a whole discussion about it. I'm sure the Satmar have a different shot in the Gemara than the Tziyonim. But I'll call upon them. This is a very big point of contention of whether or not you have a raya from the Gemara here, then maybe you are allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rab Shimon, a Mosai, when are you allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael? Even if it's very expensive, that's still not an excuse to leave Eretz Yisrael. Rather, that's even if you have all the money in the world, there's simply no food to buy. Still lo yotza. He used to say as well, Elimelech, we know who Elimelech was. He's the father in the story of Rus. He was Naomi's husband. Machlon and Kilyon were his children. Gedoyle Adar Hayu. They were Gedoyle Adar. Ufarnasei Adar Hayu. And they were like the Rosh Hakul. They were the ones who helped and supported everybody. So why were they punished that they lost everything? Because they made Yeridah. They left Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah, most of the brothers move to here.
The Gemara is going to discuss it.
And they're making more money.
That's going to be the discussion.
That's why they leave.
Fatam kola ir aleim. Everybody was wondering on them. But Taimarna, they said, Hazois Nami, is this Nami? My Hazois Nami. Look, they knew who she is. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, what they meant to say was, Amar, they said, Chazizim Nami. Sheyatzas me eretz l'chutz la'aretz ma'alsala. Look at what she suffered because she left Eretz Yisrael. So this shot in the Gemara doesn't hold like the Mefarshim here on this table, and it holds the issue was they left Eretz Yisrael. But there's other pshatim that the Gemara will bring. Yomar Rabbi Yitzchak, Oisei Yoim, Shabbos Rus HaMayavil Eretz Yisrael, the day that Rus arrived in Eretz Yisrael was not such a good day for Boaz's first wife. Mesa Ishto Shel Boaz. Ahani Damar Inchi, Ad Lashachav Shivcha, before somebody dies, Kaima Manubai say the person who's going to step into their shoes, who's going to take over for them, will be born. What exactly is the Chiddush? Why is it important for us to know who died and who came and what day? You see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has everything under control. And before he took away Boaz's wife, he had already found the replacement for her. Ad l'shach of shivcha koidim shiyamas hameis. Kaima monabaisei oimed umezumen kfar hamamuna al beisoi oimed ben koidim. I find this fascinating. When you look, you always see it. For instance, even before October 7th, because Baruch Hu made it, that the Israelis had already set up their pager company and that already sold pagers and radios Hezbollah, even before October 7th. So the refuah, a big portion of the refuah, was already in place even before the Makkah. The Rebbeinu Shalom has our backs. The Israelis sold Hezbollah with pagers. How do you think they blew them up?
That part,
Yeah, it was an Israeli company under a fake name, so they didn't realize it was run by the Israelis. And they opened up a company in Hungary. And yeah.
But I heard about the Hungary part. I didn't know that takes back to Israel.
Yeah, of course. Omer Rabba bar Ravuna, Omer Rav. Avton. Who is Avton? Zogt the Rashbam min ha-shoiftim u'b'sefer shoiftim. If you learn shoiftim, there's a mention there of a shoifet whose name was Avton. You know who that is? Zeh Boaz. That's really Boaz. My kamash malon. As the Rashbam says, my Rebbe Chesh B'dover. Why do I need to know that if Boaz had a different name? Uma onu made the mishum mitzvah mikan. What benefit do I have to know that Boaz had another name? So Gemara, Kamash Malon ki idich the Rabbi Barafuna, the other halacha that he taught us. The Amar Rabbi Barafuna Amarav, Meya the Esther Mishto is also Boaz Laban. Boaz made 120 weddings for his 60 children. Shenemar vayilo shloishim banim, ushloishim banoi shalach achutza. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters who he married off to other men. Ushloishim banoi hevi levanav. Like we know, when a girl marries a boy, she usually moves to his place. And I don't mean in today's day and age. I mean in the times of the Novi. And when the wife usually moves to live with the husband. I don't know. I'm not sure what that means over there. Ushloishim banoi hevi levanav minachutz. Vayishboit es Yisrael sheveshadim. Uvchalachas va'achas, for each one of his 60 children, he made 2 chasnits. Also, shnei mishtois. Echad beveis aviv ve'echad beveis chama. He made one over here in his city, and he made another wedding in the city of his mechutonim. I guess he figured it's cheaper to make a wedding where his mechuton lives rather than have them all pack in to here. You know, usually when you have guests coming for chasna, you have to put them up. It's a whole pachka. It's easier just to make another chasna over there for them and let them stay at home. Right? I have a friend who's a very wealthy guy, and whenever he makes a chasana, it used to be whoever of his family came. Now he himself sponsors a bus to bring all of his family. And he said because the first chasana he made, one of his siblings decided to stay. It was right before the summer. They decided to stay for the summer to have their summer vacation there. So now I'm the one who charters the bus. So I decide when they come and I decide when they go. If he would have learned this Gemara, he would have probably just made a chasna, in Lakewood for his siblings to stay there. Anyway, but he never invited Manoach to any of these chasnas. Omar, he said, could not kara. He's a man who cannot have children, but my partly, how is he going to pay me back? this sounds a little. It sounds a little bit weird that Boaz wouldn't want to go. I'm not going to go. I'm not inviting you to my wedding because I won't be able to eat on your cheshbon. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Tana, we learned all 60 children died in the life of Boaz. The older Shitin, even if you have 60 children, and this is the limud that we need to know from the fact that Avton and Boaz were the same person. Shitin Amalek, what good are 60 children? It's not enough. Ichbil, get married again, the oiled chad, and give birth to even one additional child, the Meshitin Zaris, that would be more valuable than all 60 children. That's what happened. Boaz could have said, I have 60 children. Why do I need to marry Rus? But no, he married Rus, and what happened? He had a child who led to the birth of David HaMelech, who was Shava connected all of his 60 children. So it means just because you have had a lot of children, it doesn't mean you should stop. Let's have a look at the Rishbam. Because the Rabbi Bar Huna, that is the chiddush of the fact that Avton and Boaz were the same person. The Kamari said, "Shekal bonav shel Avton meisu b'chaya." The Kamar Avton ze Boaz. From the fact that we know that Avton is Boaz, the chasav of Boaz, and the Torah tells us about Boaz. Shenosa Rus b'afal pi shoyu lo yadayim b'nam harbe. He gave birth. He married Rus, even though he had many children already. He had 60 children. Nevertheless, Ashmi'inon shemnosa adam isha b'bachrusoi. Yisa isha b'zeknusoi kemoisha of sa Avton dainu Boaz. Do what Avton did. Even if you had many children, remarry again if you lose your wife and have more children. Why did Avton remarry? Because he was concerned. How do I know that these children will survive? I have to make sure to be mekayim pruruvu. Uksiv beboiker zara esaracha. But even in the evening when you're getting older, al tanach don't let off. We learned it from here as well. You don't know who's going to be your successful child. Have we not known that Avton and Boaz are the same person? We would have said, Avton, after he lost his 60 children, after he lost his wife, he never remarried. Boaz, who married Rus, was never married to a woman before. And therefore, by knowing that Avton and Boaz are the same person, we garner this lesson from Avton and Boaz. He had 60 children and he made them each 2 weddings. So the pshat that I said is what the Rishbam is referring to. That he made a wedding in 2 places. Just one was he made the vart in one place, and he made the chas in another place. Could nakara, pray nakara, a childless mule. But my partly, how is he going to pay me back if I invite him to all these weddings? Ain't like bondhim. She asked me to leave the sudosa. So of course, Rav Chaim Shmuel asked, was boy such a nasty guy? How you talking? The teretz is that's not why he didn't invite him. He didn't invite him because he felt that it would be very hurtful to Manoich if he invites him. A person who doesn't have children who would love to marry off his kids, it's very painful for them. Some people they struggle to find shidduchim for their children. It's very painful for them to go to chasnas. I have a friend who's still single, and he tells me I can't go to weddings. It's too painful for me. It's simply too painful for me to go to weddings. So Boaz was, to the contrary, he was super sensitive to that tsar that he would cause Manoach, and that's why he didn't call Manoach. Nevertheless, Dr. Chaim Shulevitz, you might have had a good cheshbon, and you might have done the right thing. But when you hurt another person, that's a fire. It's like if you put your hand into a fire, it doesn't matter if you're bad, if you're good, if you intended good, if you intended bad, you're going to get burnt. It's a law of nature. Dr. Chaim Shulevitz, when one hurts another yid, another person, the law of nature is that he gets burnt. Even if it's the right thing to do, one gets burnt for it. And they say the same thing is with...
Would that have been considered if you would have invited him to come to the wedding?
Could be, that would have asked me enough.
Yeah.
That's right. Could be, yeah. So who was Chana's sister? Menach had 2 wives, right? Who was Chana's sister? Chana cried, and her sister
Penina.
Penina, right. So Penina used to chepa Chana not because she was nasty, because she felt that if Chana would cry out to Hashem more and more, she would be zoicha to a child. Nevertheless, Penina was punished terribly because of it. Again, she might have done the right thing, prompted her sister's tefillas, but when you mess with people, it's very, very dangerous. These are Ravuna's conclusion. Yeah. Oh, they weren't sisters. I'm sorry. They were co-wives. I apologize. They were both married to the same man. They were not sisters. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They were not sisters. They were just married to the same man. I apologize. Okay. The Chayach, the Yal, the Shitin, Shesoifon, Lomos, because they might end up dying, these 60 children. Lomalech, my betzavilla. What do you have from them if they don't survive? Ich will v'nash divisha acheres, v'oilet chad, b'shitin zoris, v'ainu oivei. Boaz gave birth to Oived, Shahilit Boaz, Mirus. Oived was a child that was born to Boaz from Rus, the Yatzimin and David Malach Israel. The Ika that passed for Shimshin, to those who don't speak about Shimshin, let hear cloud. Okay, next. Zok to Gemara weiter. Amar Avuna. Amar Bchanan by Rava Omarav. Elimelech, V'Salmoin. Salmoin, the Rashbam tells us that he was the father of Boaz. So Elimelech was Salmon, Uploini Almoni. He's the one who gave up doing Yibam on Rus. Va'avi Nami, and the father of Nami. Kulon b'nei Nachshon ben Aminadav. These were all the children of Nachshon ben Aminadav. As the Rashbam says, the Nachshon Hoyled and Salmon, the Salmon Hoyled. So we know that they were his children. Ma'kamashlan, why is it important for us to know who are the children of Nachshon? All these people had tremendous chusavos. Nachshon was the one who jumped in to the Yamsuf. Nevertheless, even though Nami had tremendous chusavos, the chusavos did not help her and protect her from the suffering that she had due to leaving Eretz Yisrael. The mother of Avram, this is a very important trivia Gemara, and it's not just fun trivia. The Gemara is going to tell us why it's important that we know these things. The mother of Avram was Amasloi Bas Karnavoy. Karnavoy is a kosher animal, as the Rashbam tells us. Karnavoy is Korim Mitzoin Taranim, sheep. Vavram was Tahar. Okay, then what else does it say? Ime the Haman, the mother of Haman, was Amasloi. She had the same first name as the mother of Avram, but she was a Bas Urvasi. An Oirev is a raven, is a Oiv Tameh. The Simonech Tameh Tameh. The Tameh Haman comes from an Oirev and Tar, and Avram, who was Tar and Kadosh, he stamped from Carnival. Ime the David, who's the mother of David, Nitzeves Bas Odol Shema. That was her name. He made a Shimshon, Thalalpunis. The Achse, you know who Shimshon's sister was? Nashyan. Lamai Nafkamina. Why is the Gemara taking the time to share with us the names of these people that aren't relevant anything? Zok to Gemara Lachuba Saminim. So we can answer the minim. What does that mean? Let's have a quick look at the Rashbam. Ime Davram. Usan Shal Yitzchak v'Yaakov is Kuskru. The Torah tells us who Yitzchak's mother was and who Yaakov's mother was. The Agav Gerara Nakat Ime de Haman. It only throws in the mother of Haman Agav Gerara Levisha Shemay Shei and Shavin. Not that was important. Okay, let's skip to Ime de David Levisha Kali Moy Shalmalachim Ksuvos Benavim Hutzach Lefarish Gam Aim David. Since the mothers of all the kings are mentioned in the Nevi'im, and David's not, the Gemara wants to tell us. The Torah spoke a lot about Shimshon's mother. So we want to know who is this mysterious woman, the mother of Shimshon. Why do we need to know this? The meaning when they try to chap us, they try to get us on Navi. They always quote psukim from Navi that we don't know how to answer. But we need to know to answer them. We need to show them that we know better than them. They ask, "Matam einonu yoidin shmoisen." You're Jewish. you don't even know the mother of those prominent members of Klal Yisrael. So therefore, we need to be able to know. When they ask about different women, they ask specifically about these women, like we explained earlier, because they're the wives of famous men, they're the mothers of famous men, and they say you don't know it. So we need to show we know that. Even though it's not mentioned in the Torah, we have a special connection to our Nevi'im who gave us this information. Avram Avinu was locked up in jail. He was captured for 10 years. 3 that it was 7 years in Kuta and 3 years in Kardu. Nimrod was the one who locked him up. Terach, Avram's own father, locked him up. He locked him up because he was breaking the getchkes that he had. Kuta v'kardu mekayim him their places. The chazel lo'idiyach hibosei shel Avram Avinu is just to show how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved Avram Avinu. Zok Gemara weiter. Amar B'chista Ivr Zira. There was a name of a city called Ivr Zira. Ivr Zira the Kusa. Zeh Ur Kasdim. This city is the city of Ur Kasdim, referred to in the Torah, where Avram Avinu was thrown over there into the fire. Why do I need to know where Ur Kasdim is? Zok to Rashbam. The Gemara is saying, if you ever pass by Ivr Zira the Kusa, you should know that's Ur Kasdim. That's the place where we have to make a bracha because Avram Avinu was saved by the Rebbeinu Shalom. The day that Avram Avinu died, he was so loved by the world. They all lined up. Woe is to the world. Shenevad manhigai. It lost its leader. And woe is to the ship. She'avad kabarnit kabarinta. It lost its kabarinta, which Rashi is on Moilech as a svina. The captain of the ship died. He raised up everybody, and he was a leader to everybody. Gargusa. Is the Rebbeinu Shalom talking about. I'm sorry. Rebbeinu Shalom is the one who lifts everybody up. Afilu Reish Gargusa, even a simple little appointment, like the job of a Reish Gargusa, which Trishpam tells us, Asar Hamamuna ala Boyrois, Mi Yidla Mimenu Hayoyim Lahashpesh Adois of Elim. Even the guy who's in charge of deciding who would use the water of the bar on each day, because that was also something that had to be decided, because otherwise they would deplete their water resources, was Shvara Katani. It's a very small, low-level clerk who does that. But it says that all malchus, all srora, all appointments are the Rebbeinu Shalom. Even the appointment of something so simple is controlled by the Rebbeinu Shalom. To say that Machlan and Kilyon left Eretz Yisrael because they didn't have food. They didn't have enough food. It wasn't lavish enough for them. Even if they would have found the lowest level of food that they could have survived off, they would have remained in Eretz Yisrael. So if that's the case, so then they left for good reason. They had nothing to eat. They should have davened for their door. They were able to leave. They were able to take care of themselves, but they weren't concerned about their brethren. Shenemar v'zakcha tatilucha kibutzecha, which the Rishbam teaches Aliases v'tizak l'kabei tanidachim tinatza. How will you be saved? Because you're going to daven for others to be saved. Tzadikim Gemur. The Parnas said there as well, but they didn't daven. I hear it. I don't know. Amar Rabbi Barbachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo Yishanu Elamois Bezul Uperes Beyoker. You know what? You know when you say that you have to stay there, that if money is cheap and the pears are very expensive. Avol Mois Beyoker, but if money is hard to buy, meaning Shaparkmatya zolama oit, which means there's deflation, there's not inflation. Afilu amdu arba son besela yoitin, you could leave. I remember. Kad have a kaimin arba son besela. I remember when you can buy 4 saw with the sell, meaning food is very, very cheap. But even if food was very, very cheap, people were still starving to death. People had bloated bellies, which is a symptom of starvation. Sure, food was cheap, but there was no food. So therefore, even if food is very cheap, and if there's no money to buy it with, if there's no money, then that's also a reason to leave. And here I remember, I remember there was a time where you would not be able to hire workers if your place of work was on the east side of the city. You know why? Because to the west of that area, they were bakers and they were bakeries. And we know the beautiful smell of fresh bread that comes out of a bakery. And as the wind blows from west to east, it would carry the aroma of the bread to these workers working on the east side of the city, yet they had nothing to eat. So they would die. People would die because they were starving to death and they had this smell, this delicious smell of bread, which they couldn't have. It caused people to die. So people wouldn't want to work in that area because it was too dangerous. Pisa Maisen, Sharuach Marovis Mina Sheves, Mavia Reach Apas, to Toiv Ma'oid, Lemizrach would bring that beautiful aroma. Umaisin that died with Toich Reach Toiv Maruba because it smelled so good. Kach Nir Be'enai. V'yesh Mefarish Mitoich Taivas Rabba. Oh, so the first part is just that good smell was dangerous in and of itself. The second shot is when you're so hungry and you smell something so good, that's damage. So nobody wanted to work there. When Rabbi Yochanan here, now I remember. Now Rabbi Yochanan is sharing with us his fond memories. Here in the Katava Botza Yenuka Charuva, it used to be, the fruit used to be so full that when a child would break open a piece of boxer, a line of honey would be dripping down both their arms because of how much honey and juice and nectar the peri was giving them. Remember, Belozar, Neherna could have a notel urva bisra, if a raven picked up a piece of meat somewhere, the nugget and put it on top of a wall or something, the nugget chutu de mishcha merei shura ba'adlar. The fat would drip down from the piece of meat from the top of the wall down to the floor. That's how juicy things were in those days. Rabbi Yochanan here, and I remember oh, this is like Asat Min Gemara. I remember when a young girl and young boy would walk together in the shuk, and they were teenagers. Today you'd get thrown out of Bishakav and you'd get thrown out of yeshiva for this. Imagine a 17-year-old boy is walking in the street and having a nice time with a 16-year-old girl, but people were so innocent in those days, it didn't lead to any avera at all. It wasn't frowned upon because it didn't lead to any bad behavior. Today, that would be trouble. Here I remember, if somebody would say the moidulahain that he's being moided to the Avodah Zarah, meaning he believes in the Avodah Zarah, you know what would happen? You know what would happen? He would follow their hands. As Rishbam says, the if he would agree to them, he would fall prey to them. You have to argue and contradict anything you say. The misrachetz aleon, someone who relied on them, delay dilhain, whatever is his will become theirs. So Dr. Rashbam, misrachetz is by teach. He relies on them. If he opens himself up to them by trusting them, they'll end up taking advantage of that trust and take everything that he has. I guess he suffered because of that. We're going to now focus on Machlon and Kilyon. But it also says, referring to them in Divrei Ayamim, Yoyash v'Sara. So were their real names Machlon and Kilyon, or were their real names Yoyash and Sarah? Rav Shmuel, Kadam or Machlon and Kilyon Shmon, really their name was Machlon and Kilyon. V'lama nikra Shimon Yoyash. Why did they have these nicknames? Yoyash is shenisiyashu min ha'geula, because they gave up. They felt there won't be a geula, and that's what caused them to fall. And Sarav is shenischayvu sreifa l'makli. They deserved to be burnt because of the fact that they didn't believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom. Ichadamar Yoyash v'Sarav Shema. Those were their real names. V'lama nikran Shimon Machlon v'Chilyon. Why does the Navi refer to them with the name Machlon and Chilyon? Is Machlon she'asu gufan Chilyon? They made themselves sick. Chulin. As the Rishbam says, Chus la'aretz, eretz tameah. So they defiled themselves by going to Chus la'aretz. V'Chilyon shenischayvu kliya l'mokri. They were deserving to be destroyed. The Rishbam says, Al sheyatzu me'eretz Yisrael. I guess I'll say Soifai, I guess it's Ruach HaKodesh. That's a good idea. It's not like what a bris. Okay, what should I call him? Let me call him Sarah.
I know.
Okay, I know you're going to.
Year 40 to 50 years.
So this must all be Ruach HaKodesh. Very good. That's a good point. Tanya, command Amar Machlon. We have a bride that says their name was really Machlon. Shimon was her name. The Tanya Maidich said by Yoikim, Va'anche Kuziva, V'yoyosh, V'sorv, Asher Balu L'moyav, V'yosh V'lechem, V'advar Matikin. So this is the pasuk, and the more dashes the pasuk as follows. The Yoikim is referring to Yehoshua. Why? Shehikim Shvulan Shegivon. He promised the people of Givon that he wouldn't kill them when they fooled him, even though they fooled him, but he didn't go back on his word. V'anche Kuziva, Elo Anche Givon. Shegozu Yeshua. They're the people of Givon who lied. As Rashbam says, Hachikamer, Misha Hekim Shvua. Yehoshua, who's Makayim the Shvua, La'anche Kuziva. Tani Yehoshua, Avalanche Kaziva, Loy Mishev Yudaim, Benacham Mishev Yudah, Shwe Kanainim Hayu, Shekizvu B'Yeshua. They're Kanainim who lied to Yeshua. V'yoyish v'soref, Elu Machlon v'Chilyon. These are referring to Machlon v'Chilyon. V'lama Nikra Shimon Yoyish v'soref, Yoyish Shedisyash V'Nagula, Soref Shenischayvu Sreifa L'Makon. So here you see a brisa that supports that shita that the name was really Machlon and Chilyon. And Yoyish v'Soref are names they got because of what they did. Asher ba'alu l'moyav. What does that mean? Shenosu noshim moyaviyos. Machlon Kilyon married women who were moyaviyos. V'yosh v'lechem. What's that referring to? So Rus hamoyaviyah. This is referring to Rus hamoyaviyah. Shenikras al shevet Judah. The Rashbam says. So these are the pasuk is talking about the children of Yehuda. Sheshava the tshuva v'nidvaka the beis hadim tzois, and she connected herself to Beis Hadim Tzois, I guess, to the place that she found herself, meaning to Klal Yisrael. Hema hayoytrim v'yoyshvin yitayim. So let me read the pasuk inside. Hema hayoytrim. V'yoshvei nitayim ugedera. I'm sure I can read it. Ugedera imamelech imalachtoi yoshev sham. So the Gemara darshans is possible. Hema yochim v'yoshvei nitayim ugedera imamelech imalachtoi yoshev sham. Hema yochim elu b'nei Yoinadav ben Rechev shenotru shvuas aviem. They watched their father's shvua, and the Rashbam says. They made a shvua, Rashi says. I don't know my Navi, but it says they made a shvua not to drink wine, like it says in Yirmiyah. Okay, weiter. Yosh v'nitam zeh shloima, referring to shloima, shedoima l'netia b'machusai. Dr. Rashbam, L'netia haloich v'goda. Shlomo was growing greater and greater. Okay, next. The Gadra, meaning they made Gedarim, Siyagim, Zeus and Hedron, Shagadru, Pirtayseim, Shal Yisrael. They were the ones who backfilled the breaks in Klal Yisrael because They needed to be protected from following and doing affairs. Imam Melech b'melachta yoshvu sham zurus hamayavia. This is referring to Rus Hamayavia. Sherasa she saw the Malchus Shloima ben Benoi shel ben Benah. She saw many generations. She lived to see. Shenemar v'yosam kisei la'ema melech Shloima. Set up a chair for the mother of the king, meaning Rus. She was the mother of the entire kingdom, so she was still sitting there by Shloima's court, shepping nachas. Okay. I'm sorry? Yes, how many generations is it? It's Shloima ben David, ben Yishai, ben Oived. So it was 4 generations past. Tanu Rabbana, v'yachalta min atfua yoshan. You'll be able to eat old tfua beloy salamantun. What are salamantun? My beloy salamantun. Rav Nachman Omer beloy ritzinta, which the Rashbam teaches as toilas hamarkav is a tfua. You'll have your wheat will last so long and it will remain fresh. It won't get wormy. Rav Sheshes Omer beloy shadifa. You're not going to suffer from windstorms. Rasha's mischamemes atfua ve'yichel lisyash. If it gets too hot from this shidafon, it won't be able to properly age, and it'll ruin them. So they will be protected from that. Tanya Kavos Reb Sheshes, Tanya Kavos Reb Nachman. Tanya Kavos Reb Nachman, V'chaltam Yoshan, you'll have old V'chaltam Yoshan. Yoshan Yochel Yisrael, Mitzapin L'Chadash, Mipnei Yoshan Shekala. You might think that everyone will be looking forward to the new crop because they've already used up their old crop and they don't know what to eat. Talmud Leimer, Adboi Tvuasa, Achetavai Tvua Me'eleh. They don't even need the new Tvua because they have so much extra. Zok Rashi, Achaba Me'eleh, Tizbashel Hatvua Yofa. The Tvua would become very ripe. If you have to harvest too early, it's not fully ripened, then the only way you can eat this hard, non-ripened wheat is to roast it, and then it will become edible. They didn't have to do that. They were able to let the fruit ripen on the plants because they had plenty. They were not in any type of rush because they had plenty in reserves. You see, aged wheat is actually better. It's better for it. It's not only things that derech is to save. How do you know that even things that you don't normally store? So the Rashbam says, what do you normally store? That would be chita and yayin. Those are designed to warehouse and to store. But mine perish even fruits, those normally rot. How do you know that even those lasted a long time? Even things that would have normally rotted, they stayed fresh and lasted a long time. Their warehouses were full still because they had so much of a yield last year that their old produce was still in their warehouses. And their granaries, which is where you process the new wheat, were full as well. And they couldn't move the stuff from the granary into the warehouse because the warehouse was full. Well, how are we going to, where are we going to build, where are we going to put this new crop when we have still fresh crop sitting in our warehouses? Amar Papa Kalmili Atiki Ma'alya, all things that are older are better. Levar mitamri v'shikra v'harsna, except for these 3 things. Tamar are dates, shichas beer, harsana are dogim ketanim. Those are better when they're fresh. So Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish the 5th parak. And b'lineder hadron Allah hamoiches esfina, hadron Allah hamoiches esfina, hadron Allah hamoiches esfina. B'shem tomorrow we're going to start the 6th parak of Basra hamoicha parak.